There is a spiny silver-green wildflower growing on the poorest, rockiest mountainsides of Greece that the people who drink it every morning do not lose their minds. Not slowly, not eventually, not in the long erasing fade that empties one in every 3 American mines before death. In the high villages where this plant is gathered by hand, the men and women who pass 90 pass it with their memories whole, remembering the names of every grandchild and the words of the songs from their weddings 60 years before. German neuroscientists put an extract of this exact plant to the test against Alzheimer's disease and watched it do something no approved drug has ever safely done, and the United States Food and Drug Administration has never funded a single trial on it, because you cannot patent a wildflower, and a medicine that no one can own is a medicine that, in our system, no one will ever pay to prove. This is Sideritis, Greek mountain tea, and the story of why the longest clear-minded people on earth drink it every day while you have never heard its name is the story of how we decide which medicines are allowed to exist. Welcome to Lost Plant Remedies. The written record begins 2,000 years ago. In the 1st century, the Greek physician Dioscorides, whose medical text anchored Western medicine for 1,500 years, described this plant as a treatment for the wounds made by iron weapons, the gashes of the battlefield. That ancient battlefield use is why the plant still carries, in its botanical name, a word that means, literally, made of iron. The botanist Theophrastus knew it before him, but the villagers who climb the slopes to gather it do not call it ironwort, they call it the mountain tea, or the shepherd's tea, because the shepherds carried it up to the high pastures and brewed it over their fires, and they have done so without interruption for longer than most nations have existed. Then, in our own century, the place these people live drew the attention of a researcher named Dan Buettner, who set out to map the spots on Earth where humans most reliably reach 100 years old in good health. He called them the blue zones, and one of the 5 he identified was the Greek island of Icaria, where the rate of dementia in the very old is a fraction of the American rate, and where the people, almost universally, drink a daily tea of wild mountain herbs, Sideritis chief among them. The pattern was the same one this channel keeps finding, a population that quietly avoids the disease we consider inevitable, and a plant they consume every single day without ever knowing the chemistry of why it works. And the chemistry, when the laboratories finally looked, was extraordinary. The plant produces a combination of flavonoids and diterpenes that does something no single pharmaceutical safely manages. It raises the levels of 3 different neurotransmitters at once, the 3 most directly tied to memory, mood, and focused attention, while simultaneously reducing the low, smouldering inflammation in brain tissue that a growing body of research now believes is the true root of Alzheimer's. Most remarkably, these compounds are built to cross the blood-brain barrier, the tight biological wall that keeps nearly every substance in your bloodstream out of your actual brain. Almost no plant compound can cross it. These do. In 2014, a research team led by Professor Jens Panke, working at the University of Magdeburg in Germany, tested an extract of Sideritis against Alzheimer's in laboratory models, and the result was so striking they published it and openly called for the plant to be studied as a preventative. The extract did not merely slow the amyloid plaques, the sticky protein tangles that strangle the aging brain and define the disease, it reduced them. It cleared them. Their follow-up work, published in 2016, documented the extract-enhancing memory and learning in Alzheimer's mouse models, and later, human trials measured real improvements in attention and processing speed in older adults who drank it. This was not folklore dressed in lab coats. This was German neuroscience arriving 2,000 years late, at the conclusion the Greek shepherds reached by simply living long and noticing who stayed sharp. So here is the question that should keep you awake. If a wild tea growing free on European mountainsides has peer-reviewed evidence behind it for preventing the single most feared disease of old age, the disease that costs the United States more than $300 billion a year to manage and not 1 cent of which cures it, then why have you never heard its name? Why is it not on every American pharmacy shelf beside the fish oil and the ginkgo? Why has the FDA, in the country that spends more on Alzheimer's research than any nation in history, never funded a single large trial on a plant that German neuroscientists are begging the world to study? The answer is the entire architecture of how a substance becomes approved medicine in America, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. Before a doctor is legally permitted to recommend something for preventing a disease, it must pass through clinical trials that cost tens, often hundreds, of millions of dollars. No company on earth will spend $100 million proving that a wild weed works, because the day that trial ended, they would own nothing. Anyone could grow the plant in a dry corner of the garden and pay them nothing. The entire system runs on the patent at the end of the process. The molecule that can be isolated, owned, manufactured, and sold for $200 a bottle for 20 protected years, and sideritis does not work through a single isolatable molecule. It works through the whole plant, the full orchestra of its compounds playing together, and you cannot patent an orchestra. So the trial never happens. The evidence sits in German and Greek journals where almost no American doctor will ever read it, and the doctor, allowed to recommend only what the trials have approved, stays silent, not from malice, but because the system has built no pathway for a plant that cannot be sold. The villagers of Icaria, meanwhile, have never once waited for the FDA. They drink the tea their grandmothers gathered, and they keep their minds until the day they die. The rest of that part of the world never forgot. Across Greece, the Balkans, Turkey, and Spain, each mountain region has its own local species of sideritis and its own name for the daily tea. And the villagers will tell you with great seriousness that each mountain's plant is subtly different from the valley next door, and they are right. In Greece it is saitou vounou, the tea of the mountain. It is poured for guests, brewed for colds, and drunk every morning the way an American reaches without thinking for coffee. Half that part of the world never stopped. The other half, ours, never started, because no one was ever paid to tell us. So let me show you how to take it back. Sideritis grows as a low, compact, fuzzy plant with soft, silver-green leaves and tall, slender spikes of pale yellow flowers, thriving on exactly the dry, rocky, sun-blasted, terrible soil that defeats nearly everything else. If you grow it, and it grows readily from seed, you must resist every gardening instinct, because it does not want rich soil, frequent water, or fertilizer. It wants a dry, gritty, sunny, neglected corner with sharp drainage, the kind of spot where you have failed to grow anything else, because that is the mountainside it evolved on. Harvest in midsummer when the flower spikes are full, cutting the whole flowering stalk, leaves and stems and flowers together, because the medicine lives in all of it. Gather the stalks into bundles, hang them upside down in a dry shaded place for about 2 weeks until crisp, then store them whole in a glass jar away from light, and they hold their power for a year. To brew it the way the villagers do, understand that this is not a delicate 3-minute steep. It is a hardy mountain plant that gives up its compounds slowly, so you simmer it. Break 1 dried stalk into a small pot, cover with about 3 cups of water, bring to a boil, and simmer gently for 10 full minutes until the water turns the pale gold of late afternoon. Strain and drink it hot, traditionally with a spoon of raw honey and a squeeze of lemon, though many of the oldest villagers drink it plain. 1 stalk makes a pot, 1 pot is a day, and the rhythm is the entire point. A cup every morning, and often a second in the afternoon. It carries no caffeine and is gently calming rather than stimulating, which is exactly why it has also been the traditional Greek remedy for 2,000 years for anxiety, and for the common cold, 2 more uses the modern studies have since confirmed. 1 honest note: sideritis has an exceptionally clean safety record across 2 millennia of daily use by whole populations, about as strong a real-world signal as a plant can offer. Still, if you are pregnant or taking medication for blood pressure or mood, speak with a knowledgeable practitioner first, precisely because a plant that measurably acts on brain chemistry and circulation deserves respect. Buy true sideritis from a reputable source if you are not growing your own, because the loose name mountain tea is sometimes misapplied, and understand it for what it is. A daily preventative taken over years the way the villagers take it. Not a single dose you swallow expecting a miracle by morning. They did not get their clear minds from 1 cup. They got them from 10,000 cups across a lifetime. So consider what has been kept from you. The Alzheimer's industry does not want you to know that German neuroscientists watched a wild tea-clear amyloid plaques. The pharmaceutical system does not want you to know that the reason it has never been proven is not that it failed, but that no one can own it. They will not tell you that Dioscorides documented it 2,000 years ago. They will not tell you that the longest clear-minded people on Earth drink it every morning. They will not tell you that a German university published the evidence and called for trials a decade ago. They will not tell you because there is no profit in a wildflower that protects the mind for free and cannot be patented. But the plant does not need their permission, and neither do you. It is not just a weed on a Greek mountainside. It is the idea that the mind can be defended for free, that the knowledge of how belongs to everyone, and that it can pass from one pair of hands to the next without a corporation taking its cut. Every person who learns to grow and brew the mountain tea is one more person who can never again be told that protecting their own brain requires permission and a prescription. If this opened something for you, subscribe to Lost Plant Remedies before this video disappears, because we cover the plants and the forgotten knowledge that the most powerful industries on Earth would much rather stayed forgotten. And if you want me to walk you through growing and preparing the mountain tea yourself, along with 4 other forgotten remedies, grab my free 5-day course, The Lost Ferment, linked in the description below. It costs nothing. The Greek villagers never waited for anyone's permission to keep their minds. Neither should you.